I wanted to share with you a few documents I create as a director when I'm getting ready to make a film. I have no background in film school or anything like that, so these are things that I've just picked up along the way. And they're specific for me, so other people may do things very differently. I haven't included storyboards, but they're pretty much everything else I think is in there that I use. There may be things I've left out. But the idea is just to give you a feel for how I think and how I go about things. So hopefully you'll find them interesting. Okay, so this is the first of the documents I mentioned, and I call it General Notes. Pretty creative name, I know. And the idea of this document is to give people on the team a feel of where I'm coming from. It's certainly by no means definitive, but if someone turned around tomorrow and said, here's some money, but you have to start filming tomorrow, we would have something to work off. But ideally, this is a starting point for discussions. However, when you're doing everything yourself, like it's a very short film, I have some scripts that are 2 pages long, this may be something you need to cover all by yourself. That's the reality of it. So let me just go through it and give you an idea of the sort of things that I do. You may hear some planes in the background. Sorry about that. I like to start with a bit of an image, just to something which might reflect the general feel of the film. And you can see from this image here, we've got that the idea of the film is that no one is who they seem to be, and the image is reflecting that idea. I've got a draft log line here, which is, a draft, a starting point, but it also gives you an idea about what it's about and what the challenges are. And it just gives you a bit of a feel for what to expect in the film. And that will change. I mean, I'm sure it'll change by the time the film gets made. Director's note is just an idea about how I'm feeling about things, and I guess it expands on the idea just a little bit more to give people a little bit more detail. Not much, but just so they have a feel for where I'm coming from. I have some themes, and again, everything mentioned here will probably or almost certainly change. They might get expanded on, they might get contracted, who knows. But these are the themes that I was thinking of when I was writing this particular script and thinking about how the film would be made and what it's supposed to be about. I also have mood. So like I've said here, what I want people to feel unconsciously when they're watching it, and how I want them to feel about the characters. And I may go into this in a bit more detail with the different team members and the cast. But here I just want to give and there's lots of question marks. You'll probably find lots of question marks all through this document. And this is just an early draft of something I did. Because in this stage, there's always lots of questions to ask and lots of questions to answer. So it's just, a starting point. Also about pace, locations, just a feel for how I see the locations, different types of locations, external and internal locations, how they may be, like it's a mess, there's rubbish everywhere, what's, the key things that are in the rooms. Then camera, like if I can't see myself being a cinematographer anytime soon, so these were certainly discussions I would have with anyone that was on the camera. And everything I talk about here, like the locations, the mood, the feel, the pace, when I come to talk to someone like the person who's on the camera, they all feed into the discussions about what ratio we shoot in. Will the camera be static most of the time or moving most of the time? All that kind of things. Which camera's best to tell this kind of story? And, I rely heavily on a camera person for that information and that input to help us make the best film we can. And that relates to everything on this document. Lighting, again, there is some specific lighting effects in the latter part of the film, which will be very challenging. I don't think I've got them specifically in here, but they were something that I'd have to talk to the person on the camera and the lighting if they're different, and also visual effects as well, because how we light things will affect any visual effects as well. So I was going to say something and now it's gone. Well, maybe it'll come back to me. Design, again, all of those things I talked about before, about light and how we shoot it and all that kind of thing. Everything, I don't think a lot of people who aren't filmmakers realize how dovetailed everything is. I mean, if you make a change to lighting, then that affects design because it's not going to look the way you thought it was going to look in those early discussions. So everything is going to be fairly dynamic in the early days until you start settling into that final look or that final feel or the final combination of all these elements that everyone is happy with and everyone can achieve, because that's a big thing on a low budget film. Can you get it done? I mean, it's great to have all these wonderful ideas, but if you haven't got any of this to do some of those things, then you've got to get creative. Costume, again with costume, related to all those other things I've mentioned. Again, hair and makeup, if things like lighting and shot size and all those things will determine what kind of makeup you use and how much, and everything's interconnected. Sound, of course, is hugely important. There's some specific things that I was looking to achieve with this about trying to make it feel like a sound has moved from in front of some people to behind them. I don't know how to achieve that, but that was something that I would lay at the feet of the sound designer or sound recorder or team or person who's doing it all, depending on the situation. Again, with music, I have some ideas about music, but I haven't got them in here. But what I've done here is, if I was to hand this off to someone, is give some hints at the feeling around scenes or moments in the film, to give whoever was looking at sound, whether it was a composer or someone looking at songs or whatever it is, to give them a feel. And these are all, if you were lucky enough to be in a situation to have someone assigned to all these roles, then all these notes are starting discussion points. Here's an image, because it's about a homeless guy, so here's a kind of a visual feel. Here's some images about possible locations. And images like this they're kind of like a lookbook, not as complete as a lookbook, but a feel of what I'm looking for, the sort of feel and grittiness and hopelessness in some cases that I'm looking for. And it really helps all the other departments with understanding where I'm coming from. You can write it on a bit of paper, and that's great, but visually it helps just so much to be able to portray something. So here's a piece of art as well. It's always nice to have some art. That gives you a very strong image. I'm not going to go into too much about why, because, hopefully the film will get made, and I hate telling people what to think. All I want to do is make something, show you, and let you decide for yourself. And I don't like saying too much about this film is about this. I like the audience to make up their minds about that and not have me prescribe to them. So, just these showing someone an image like this, or an image like this, or an image like this, they portray so much. And I think that's really, really helpful to people on the team. So that's the general notes one. So let me come over here and find, where did I put them all? Okay, this is, I'll jump to 4, character notes. For anyone that's an actor, they will certainly, and I come from acting, so it's probably why I've written it this way, but the idea is that I would create this document, to be honest with you, to help myself, because as many of these sort of aids that I have, the better. Excuse me. Because as a director, you have so many different little things to think about. And if it's easy to forget something, especially as you get older. And it's good to have all these notes about as many aspects as possible. You don't have to share them, all of them, with everybody, and I'll come to that in a moment. But this is about if there was a writer on this, a separate writer, I would like to discuss this with them. And we would come up with these things. And then, to be honest with you, what I would do is talk to the actor about how they see it and not show them this, or before showing them this, to see if, they may take things in another direction, which is way better than the ideas I have down here. So I don't want to, channel their thinking. I want it to be as wide open as possible for as long as possible. And then I might show them this and say, well, this is where we were coming from, and, what do you think about this? And again, a discussion starter. But if I'm stuck, it's good to have these things and I forget where I was coming from, then it's good to have things like this as a basis. And what I would do ideally, and, as I keep saying in indie filmmaking, ideal situations don't come up too often. But if I have everything ready, like worst situation, I get an actor, they're busy, don't get to talk to them, they turn up on shooting day and we have to crack on. Then I have something, and, while they're in makeup or something, we can chat about it, and because that's the reality of it, of filming a lot of the time. So yeah, it's just things like wants and obstacles and relationships with other characters and backstories and things that actors will be very familiar with. And it helps me, if you get stuck in a scene, it helps you to know what does this character want over the course of the film. Then you know what you need to tap into in a scene if you get lost. Shot list with notes. Now, this isn't shot list with shot images. I might go and do that on a separate video one day because this will be too long. What I do is I write down, as you can see here, I write down just a general note for myself and for when I'm discussing with particular scenes with the crew specifically, because, and it may be relevant to the actors as well, but in this, I'm thinking crew mainly with this document, and specifically, obviously, the camera person, because I just put down, what I tend to do is I put down a bunch of shots, knowing in my heart that it may end up being 1 or 2 shots, not 7 or 8 like I've written there in that scene 1. But I just kind of do a brain dump of every image I see in my head, and I put it down there. And then when I can talk to someone on the camera, they may say, well, what about we do it like this, and we can cover this shot you're looking for and this other shot in this one setup or in this one movement or something. So it's really just a brain dump for me as a starting point to discussing possible shots. So, and then storyboarding. So, and I like to have a feel. There might be one, like I've got reluctance in this scene 1. There might be more than one. It's always nice to have one, but things may flip mid-scene, so there may be, different things you're going for. But it's nice to have, again, something that other people can grab onto, that they know what I'm looking for in that scene. And the last one I have here is one I'm not going to show you, which is a bit of a tease. But what I do with that, and I don't think I've got this filled out. No. I'm going to, what I've written here is, it's exactly the same as the last one I showed you. But what I do in this document is, these are my notes, specifically for me. So I would have here, I wouldn't have what's written on this now, because that's the same as before. I would have scene 1, and I would have some what ifs, if some potential things I might be able to say to an actor to take them in a different direction, or it might be things like, if the previous scene it turned out a different way than what I planned, what do I do in this scene? It's kind of like a what if scenario. So I give myself some tools to work through the scene if things aren't going the way I expected them to or want them to. Just some things that I can play with. And I like to keep them to myself because, one, we may not need them, and I don't want to burden anyone with more, because especially with indie film, everyone's, got a hell of a lot to do. So it's my back pocket, if you like, my backup, I guess, in a way. So yeah, so they're the 4 documents that I create, and they help me get started on the path. And I use them, like I said at the start, I use them to start everyone, getting a feel for where I'm coming from. Everything's open for discussion, always. And these are a starting point, and I would update this as we slowly lock things down. And it's really good if someone rings you up the night before and says, I can't make it, Spielberg's called me and I'm going to go and work on his film. Of course, it's not great, but you understand. And you get someone at the last moment, and you can, and you're not going to be able to, you can talk to them on the phone or have a Zoom or something. But if you can send them something like this as well, it gives them something to, even if it's read on the train on the way to the job in the morning. It just gives them something to get their teeth in so they have a better feel. And the reality is quite a bit happens last moment with indie filmmaking, so I think it's really helpful. Thanks for watching. It'd be great if you could like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you'd like to support further, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description. I hope to see you in the next one.